I know people are angry about the trade deadline. They're angry about the payroll, but I think this is a day to rejoice. Smalley is not only returning to your TV screen, he's returning to more TV screens because we actually have the Twins games more available on television. I don't know how anybody, they didn't trade for anybody. You get Smalley in the deal.
You get my smiling face and my dulcet tones over the air now.
And the best tones are the dulcet tones, I've always thought.
Right. The biggest acquisition of the trade deadline.
No doubt about it. All right,
a reacquisition.
That will depress the world, the Twins world.
We will talk about the trade deadline. We'll talk about the poll ads. We'll talk about the state of the race and this team. We'll even talk about the White Sox. I didn't think they could be this bad. I was wrong. They are this bad. This is Chin Music. This is our baseball show at TalkNorth.com. Lineup today, Smalley, former Twins All-Star, current Twins broadcaster, and yes, he'll be on TV this weekend. LaVelle Neal, Star Tribune columnist and former Twins beat writer. I'm Jim Souhan, Star Tribune columnist and former Twins beat writer. We have a blast doing this show. We appreciate you listening. Best way to listen to this show or any show at TalkNorth.com. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's the easiest way to listen. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios, and we want to thank your boat club, Minnesota Masonic Charities, and True Vision Institute. All right, let's get right to it. The world is mad at the poll ads. The world is mad at the Twins front office for not doing more at the trade deadline. I usually take a more nuanced view of the trade deadline because I recognize how many deals get done at the trade deadline that don't end up getting the desired result. Either the team doesn't play well enough to justify it or the player doesn't play well enough to justify it. But in this case, I do feel like this is a point in Twins history. You're coming off a playoff victory. You have your stars aligned. Carlos Correa is coming back. Royce Lewis is healthy. Buxton's healthy and swinging well. Pablo Lopez is healthy. You have your all-star closer healthy. I feel like this is the time, if you're ever going to go for it, you should have gone for it now. Roy, let's start with you. You've been on all sides of this thing. You've been a broadcaster. You've been a player who's been traded. You've been in the clubhouses. What did you make of the entire trading deadline scenario?
Well, I'm sure I must have said this 100 times before. First and foremost, just on a kind of a macro level, I think trades are hard to make. Really good trades are hard to make, and so what I would want to say to everybody that's mad at the Twins not making a trade, I'd like to know. I think if you're going to have an opinion about that, you should say, okay, these are the Twins players that that they have to be willing to give up. Now, who are those? Give me a list of those players that they would happily trade for the right, let's call it a pitcher. And then, depending on the caliber of the pitcher they're going to get, tell me how many on that list you'd be willing to trade. And I think ultimately what everybody wants out there is to get a frontline starting pitcher, a guy that would eclipse Pablo Lopez as the number one starter, and trade 3 A-ball players for him. Why can't we do that? So I just think it's really, really hard to make a trade when you look at the lineup you've got on the field in the big leagues and the prospects you have coming up, which there are still a considerable number of pretty good talents down there. And you say, okay, I know we got to give up something to get something. How much something are we going to get? And what does that cost in terms of what we're going to give up? And I was not surprised in the least that the Twins didn't make a trade, because I think they're strong enough to not have to trade Brooks Lee or Royce Lewis or Matt Wallner or Festa or some of these kids in AAA that are coming on that are going to be big league players at some point in time. I just think I think what the Twins would want to get, what the other clubs were asking for from the Twins, we don't know. My suspicion is it was hard to part with anybody for the value they're going to get in return.
The other thing, too, is that sometimes it's better to not make a trade than to make a bad trade. Actually, I think it is better all the time. Rather not. Exactly. And I'm sitting here looking at what the Twins done in past deadlines. Jorge Lopez, how did that one turn out? Sam Dyson, how did that one turn out? There's been some clunkers along the way for sure. And there's times where a deadline deal has helped. I still remember when the Twins traded Bobby Kilty, who was an everyday player, for Shannon Stewart. That ended up being a great deal. Trading Matt Lawton for Rick Reed, that worked out, but it takes two to tango. And with prospects being as coveted as they are now, they were considered, more higher capital than they did a few years ago. People don't want to give up their good prospects. And I'm sure they were asking about Brooks-Lee. Maybe asking, I guess there was some conversations about Kepler. We don't know what the Twins could have got back for Kepler. I feel for the fans because I get it. The Twins have a chance to do something this year. And when you sense that opportunity, you got to push hard for it. And the Twins did not come up with any tangible proof that they got better, except for a middle reliever from Toronto that they got. So, but at the same time, a lot of these deadline deals don't work out, and you got to see how this plays out. I thought the 2019 Twins Obama squad, I thought that was a terrible. That was a great opportunity that the Twins missed to try to add some pitching to go along with that prolific home run hitting offense. I'm not ready to go there with this year's group. I want to see this team healthy. I think health may be the biggest acquisition here down the stretch for the squad, getting everybody who's going to contribute on the field together and see how lethal they can be.
Roy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with everything LaVelle said. I think we've kind of indicated we're on the same page about the Twins not making a deal, which would, at the trade deadline, this particular case probably would have been a bad one. I think if fans are going to be mad at the Twins for anything non-deal related, or you didn't make a deal to improve the club, then I think they should continue their anger for not making a deal over the winter, the hot stove league, or sometime over the winter. They knew the club they had. I think they suspected they were going to have a really good club. When the club broke from camp and spring training, Rocco said, "Man, we're going to score a lot of runs." They kind of knew that they had a good offense. They were going to be able to catch the ball on defense, and they needed some starting pitching. So, they knew all that. And deals are hard to make, and same thing could apply. But I think it would have been easier to make a deal back then than it is now.
That's a very good point. And, LaVelle brought up the Bobby Kilty deal. So everything you guys have said reminded me of two pieces of Twins history. The first was Ron Gardenhire. One of the things he brought to the ballpark every day was an incredible intensity and competitiveness. He wanted to win desperately every day. He wanted to win every year. And everybody wants to win, but Gardy wore it on his sleeve, I think, more than most. And he wasn't shy about letting it be known that he was frustrated that the Twins wouldn't make bigger deals at the trade deadline when they had a good team. Sometimes he'd say it publicly, sometimes he'd say it privately, sometimes he'd say it to players, but he was always fired up that time of the year. So one time, Terry Ryan said, "Okay, I get you're frustrated, and I don't think you understand what goes on. Why don't you come spend trade deadline day in my office?" So he did that. And he came back down that afternoon. We're talking to him in the clubhouse, and he's going, "My God, I had no idea how badly teams tried to screw you over."
Right. That's exactly right.
And, he was like, "We can't give up these 8 prospects for this one guy who's going to pitch for us for 2 months. We can't do that." So Terry basically completely changed Gardy's mind just by having him sit in on the phone calls he was getting at the trade deadline that one year. The other point of reference I'll make that LaVelle's brought up is the Bobby Kilty for Shannon Stewart deal. That was an incredible deal. One of the best deals Terry Ryan ever made, and he made a lot of good trades. But that was a very unique set of circumstances, and it had nothing to do with money or anything else. Bobby Kilty had a higher value on the market than he did in the Twins organization. And that's the perfect guy to trade. The market looked at him as a guy who could hit home runs, draw walks at a time when those analytics were really being promoted. And he was a power and patience guy. He was young. He was very desirable to other teams. The Twins looked at him and said, "He's breaking down physically. He's not that good." They traded him for Shannon Stewart, who was an old school guy, a singles hitting guy, didn't always hit home runs, didn't draw a lot of walks, but he fit perfectly for the Twins lineup because they wanted a veteran guy who could lead off and provide some leadership and would hit line drives all over the field in the Metrodome. So that was the perfect trade. But those trades are so rare to have it align that perfectly for you.
Yep.
The point that you make is the right one, is what I think LaVelle and I were trying to make, is that without fail, especially at the trade deadline, you value your players way higher than other teams do. That's just the way it is, and most of the time, to your Gardy story point, most of the time you're right about you're right about that. The Twins or other teams are trying to screw you over at the trade deadline. So I mean it's a great example, I think, of what LaVelle and I were talking about. And if you ever do get a situation where someone really wants one of your players and you're saying, this would be a great time. We don't when the opposite is true, when someone else values a player of yours more than you do, then make a trade.
I forgot one more deal too. Nelson Cruz signed with the Twins instead of the Rays, and of course, 2019 happened. Bomber Squad. I think everything was great. A couple years later, trade deadline, the Rays are hungry for offense, and they traded Joe Ryan for a half season of Nelson Cruz. And I think the Twins took advantage of a team that had salivated over a player a couple years ago and still had fondness for that player at the deadline. And that's a deal that worked out well, but those don't happen very often, usually the Rays fleece the other team with these deals. It rarely happens to them. And that was one example where it worked, as the Twins took advantage of a team that was desperate for offense and was already in love with the player.
Very good point. By the way, I haven't really spent much time thinking about the new TV deal that's going to expand Twins coverage for the rest of this season, because I already get Twins channel. LaVelle, what do you have anything to add to this new TV deal? What it does for the Twins and how many more people are going to be able to watch the team?
Yeah, the good thing is that more eyes can watch the squad play and make a run for the postseason. I still think there's going to be some scar tissue left over from the whole process, especially how the Twins communicated it. They could have warned the fan base that something like this was coming down the pike instead of letting it just kind of happen. Two, they could have been more proactive a little bit by finding a contingency plan. But I think that was something that can be knocked for a little bit. But fortunately, the fans have an option. Now, it's not perfect because it's now going to be on a higher tier. So I think you have to pay a few more bucks more a month to have access to Bally Sports on the higher tier that Comcast is presenting. But this is a great development. The more people that can watch Roy Smalley and his flowing hair, perfectly coiffed, I think it's better for baseball.
I couldn't have said that better myself. And while we all just sit back and think about it.
I could have said that better.
Well, that's why you're on TV. Because you have dulcet tones and because you can say it better than we can. All right, you guys just contemplate or anticipate dulcet tones and flowing hair while I let you know we're coming through from the Aquarius Home Services studio, and we want to thank your boat club.
Got the winter blues? Start planning your summer. Plan on fun and get out in the water with your boat club. Your boat club offers boat club memberships and daily rentals with access to over 40 bodies of water and over 400 brand new boats to enjoy. Whether you want to cruise on a pontoon, create waves in a speedboat, or reel in a big one on a fishing boat, your boat club has got you covered. Unlimited boating memberships are available now, starting at just $1.99 a month after a one-time initiation. Life is better on the water. Find out more today at yourboatclub.com.
Yes, great time of the year to own a boat, to rent a boat, to get out on the lakes. Also, always a great time of year to appreciate what Minnesota Masonic Charities does.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks
John
to come.
Krasinski on the network. He does the Timberwolves show, the John Krasinski show, it's called. Very creative on our part. Also, he contributes with me on the Viking Update show, 2 writers talking about the Vikings. And he has just gotten LASIK surgery through True Vision Institute, and he's loving it.
Yeah, I'm a brand new man, Jim, this week. If for listeners of the John Krasinski show over the last month or more, I've been telling you all about True Vision Institute in Bloomington. And we've been talking a lot about the help that they gave me in the consultation to figure out how to correct my vision once and for all, and all the process of going through it. Well, finally, last week, I was able to go in and have LASIK surgery at True Vision. And, I've talked to people who have had it before, and they all say how much it changes their lives. I'm like, all right, come on. Can it really be that good? And here I am, less than a week out from surgery. And I'm telling you, it is that good. For the first time since I've been in 4th grade, I don't have glasses or contacts to mess with. I don't have to worry about going in for, every year or two for vision checkups and for new glasses and putting hundreds of dollars into new glasses or new contacts. A contact gets ripped and I got to go replace that. The best thing about it is I wake up in the morning and I'm not fumbling around for my glasses so I can see, check my phone, look over at my wife and see her face. Like I'm seeing 100% clearly. And it happened almost immediately after the surgery. I went in for the surgery last week and I was a little nervous. You got a laser pointed at your eye. It's nerve wracking, but the people at True Vision were so welcoming and calming and comforting, that it really took a lot of the anxiety away for me for the procedure itself. I was in and out in a little over an hour. The procedure itself actually only takes a couple of minutes. They do what they need to do to get your eyes fixed and they get you on your way. My mom gave me a ride home. I spent the night just kind of resting, sleeping. When I woke up the next morning, seeing 100% clearly, could drive to my follow-up appointment, 20/20 vision. Everything was great. And I still am kind of walking around pinching myself right now that I can't believe I don't have glasses or contacts anymore. And Dr. Chu was absolutely phenomenal through the process. I was nervous. He has a very soothing, calming voice. He takes you through it very easily. He puts you at ease. He makes you feel comfortable when you're on the table getting the procedure done. And it just was really helpful for me in just kind of taking away a lot of the nervousness that I had about it. He was so easygoing and was so reassuring, and just talked me through everything. It only took a few minutes to get done. And then I was out the door and on my way. A week later, I feel great. I'm seeing perfectly. I wish I would have done it 10 years ago. Go to truevision.com and set up your consultation. Tell them the John Krasinski show sent you. But honestly, I cannot speak highly enough about my experience there and about the results. It's just life-changing stuff.
All right, gentlemen, before we get to more Twins issues, LaVelle, you and I, and Roy too, from the TV side, we covered some really bad Twins teams. We covered Twins teams in the late 90s, especially like 98, 99, where they really weren't even trying to win. They were just hoping a group of young players would come along and hoping they'd get a stadium at some point. They were spending absolutely nothing on the product. We understood why those teams were bad. I'm not sure. I need your help as a former White Sox and a former White Sox fan. Help me understand how this franchise is this bad. Let's start with Roy.
I'm with your opening comment. I never thought they could possibly be as bad. They had Kopech pitching for them. They had Crochet pitching for them. They had Dylan Cease pitching for them. That should give an offense that has the guys in their lineup a chance to be a close to 500 club minimum, I would have thought. And it just wasn't. Now, injuries played a part. Luis Robert has a hard time staying on the field, it seems. But they didn't have Moncada, who was kind of a key figure there. But for the most part, it's just drastic lack of performance across the board. I think. I just think everybody underperformed. At every position on the field. So I mean, that's the only thing I can, as I've watched them, against the Twins at least, and seen some of the weak at bats that they keep rolling up there. I've seen some of the bullpen disasters and different things. I think it's I think it's just a question. They were okay if they played up to what they thought, and nobody did.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I have been, and you have too. I've been in clubhouses where you get to a certain point in the season and everybody's like, okay, we're showing up and trying to show some pride, but we know we're not good. And that's got to be really deflating when you're going out and facing good major league teams all the time.
It's really deflating. It's hard, man. One of the toughest things to do, it's when you're in an individual slump at the plate, for example, that's really tough to get through. When you go to the ballpark every day, whether you're hitting or not hitting, and the team stinks, and you got to go out there and find some way, pride and otherwise, to give it a big league effort as best you can. It's a difficult task. It really is. I mean, it's fun to win. It's fun to go to the ballpark expecting to win and thinking that you're not going to win every game, but we're going to win. We're going to win most. And when it's not that way, it's not a fun profession.
Yeah. Hey, I'm really intrigued, especially since the Twins didn't add a starting pitcher at the trading deadline. I'm really intrigued in Festa and what you think he can do the rest of the way. What did you think of his outing against the Mets and his prospects?
I think his prospects are pretty good. I really do. And I'm basing that just on the way he pitched against the Phillies. When the Phillies were in town, they did a little opener deal with Steven Okert, and they obviously wanted to bring Festa in, in a clean inning, and Okert loaded the bases, and they went right to Festa, and he got him out of that inning. He pitched 5 innings, gave 1 run against the Phillies, and it wasn't, whether the Phillies were off a little bit because they had not been swinging it quite as well when they came into Target Field. But it doesn't matter. They're all big league hitters. They're really exceptional big league hitters. And Festa threw 3 pitches in locations that were really good. And we've talked about this a million times, but, it's about location first and foremost. And he threw high fastballs at 95 to 96 and threw them for strikes. He threw fastballs on the corners. He threw changeups to left-handers that were in good locations, down and away. He threw a nice little slider to right-handers the same way, down and away. I think he's got a chance. And I thought he pitched well enough against the Mets. He's going to give up some home runs, but that's the way it is in this league. And if you don't walk people and you have the stuff that he's got, then it's just about location, and if he's got the location, he's going to win.
I think the kid's on the right track. I like his fastball. I like his slider a lot. I think he's going to take some lumps early, and he's going to learn the importance of changing speeds. I think that's going to help him going down the stretch. But fortunately, we've seen him make 2 or 3 appearances now, and I think he's gotten more comfortable. So you're seeing better quality stuff, I think, than his debut day. But I just like to see him improve his changeup to pair with that fastball. And like I say, I like that slider. It's nice and snappy. And he can do some stuff here. So I don't think he projects as a number 1 or number 2 guy, but I think he's a solid mid-rotation starter potential. And who knows, as he gets some more experience and starts adding and subtracting pitches, maybe he can pitch his way up to being more of a front 1 or 2 in a rotation guy. So I want to see more of him.
Let's go big picture here. We're past the trading deadline. We're into August. This is the time of the year where you stop talking about how long a season it is and you start saying, okay, it's time to move. How do you guys handicap this race? Let's start with LaVelle.
It's incredible. We keep expecting Cleveland to fall, and they have a little bit. They're down to 60 winning percentage, but they got a 6-game lead on the Twins, and the Twins are going to have to get hot and stay hot here to run this team down over the last 2 months of the season. I think it's possible because we've seen how hot they can get when everybody's healthy and hitting. The bullpen has taken some lumps since the All-Star break, so that's got to get sorted out a little bit. But Cleveland made a couple moves at the break to help add some depth. I don't think there were any blockbuster moves there. So, and we got to watch out for the Royals. The Royals keep coming. Bobby Witt is going to get MVP votes this year. This could be a 3-team battle here going down the stretch. But the key for the Twins is getting healthy and staying healthy. I mean, Royce Lewis, swung out awkwardly against the Mets and needed a few minutes. I'm sitting there going, oh no, what is this? I was worried that he had like popped a hamate bone or something or did something bad. So every time he collides with something or falls down, I'm watching to see if he gets back up, kind of like the way I watched Buxton in recent years. Gotta get Carlos Correa back. He's not really doing much at all. That plantar fasciitis that's supposed to not be as bad as it was a year ago is proven to be a little bit more than what the Twins initially believed or announced. As someone who's had plantar, it took me 6 weeks to get over it. I'm not an athlete. Carlos is, but he may need time to stay off that foot to let it heal because he's going to be needed down the stretch here to help this team charge back into this thing. But man, if they could just avoid these tough luck injuries, that would be a major development in terms of helping their cause to run down Cleveland.
And speaking of running down Cleveland, which they have to do, obviously, I'm going to be on the air for the homestand next week, starting a week from tomorrow. And they've got Cleveland and for 3 and Kansas City for 3. And I am going to throw it out there that it may not make the Twins season. Could. It could be kind of a non-event, which is getting closer to a break the season. If they just go basically 500, I mean, if they don't win, 5 of the, 4, at least 4 of the 6 games, then it's, they're treading water with Cleveland still 6 games up, and they've got them at home. They've got both of those clubs at home. So I think they've got 7 games, including those 2 Cleveland next week, 7 games left with Cleveland, and they're 6 games back. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what do they have to do head-to-head in order to think you've got a good chance of catching them or passing them with both of you and Cleveland against the rest of the league? I think next week's homestand is probably pretty doggone pivotal.
And the thing, too, about Cleveland, they have the 4th toughest schedule remaining in among Major League teams. They've got 4 against Baltimore. They have 3 against the Yankees. They have 3 against the Dodgers. They have 3 against Milwaukee. 7 against Kansas City. Now that Kansas City has emerged as a potential threat here. So, in comparison, the Twins' schedule is ranked 14th the rest of the way. So they got to beat up on these teams that they on paper that they're better than, and they've got to cash in the head-to-head matchups against Cleveland. So the room for error is shrunk here. And once again, they can get healthy and get the bullpen sorted out. They can make this very interesting. And I'm talking in terms of the winning the division. I would rather see them win a division instead of getting a wild card spot and seeing how it works out. Although, the last World Series, I believe, had 2 wild card teams. But I think the Twins were projected to win the division going into the season. And I think we're kind of looking at them through that prism.
Yep, well said. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be fun to watch Roy on TV for these big games. So we're really looking forward to that. Let's go around the horn and get a final thought from each of you as we get into the meat of the schedule here. Let's start with LaVelle.
All right, here's my final thought. I'm sorry to dial back because I was ready to explode on this. Yo Moncada has got to be one of the greatest burglars in the history of Major League Baseball. This guy came in from Cuba, hyped, broken with the Red Sox, traded to the Twins, to the White Sox, and he has only had one good season since then. Yoan Moncada is making $24 million this year. He's made $66 million in his career, and you could argue that he's had just one good season. I don't want to call him a dog because he had injuries, and being in Minnesota, we know what that's like. But my goodness, when he's been on the field, he's been a tease, and he's been a very expensive tease. So, and he's not even. I think he got injured in April with an adductor strain. It has not been seen since. So, this guy's been all bark and no bite throughout his career.
All right, that's LaVelle's very emotional last thought.
Yeah, I'm glad he dialed it back.
Yeah, it's very good. Glad he dialed it back. We'd have to edit, censor his entire conversation.
We'd have to send somebody over there to check on him.
We do that anyway.
I said this at the break when I was on the air right before the All-Star break. I just wish that, and everybody's talking about trade deadline. I said, I just wish for one thing. I wish the Twins the very best of health. And then let the chips fall where they may. I don't care if they get anybody or not. Everybody be healthy and play the last 6-7 weeks of the season at full strength, and then get what you deserve. See how you play, get what you deserve. And I would take this club down the stretch with everybody healthy. Of course, they're not. Correa's not back. Brock Stewart's hurt again. There are issues, but if they can get Correa healthy and everybody else stays healthy for the rest of the season, then I'm willing to live with the result.
And my final thought is as simple as can be. I love meaningful baseball in August and September. Of course, October too, but I just love the daily drama. I'm looking so much forward to this. It's going to be a blast. And I'm looking forward to talking about it with these gentlemen. Thank you all for listening to Chin Music. Thanks to Roy. Thanks to LaVelle. Thanks to our producers at TalkNorth.com. And we'll be back next week with dulcet tones and flowing lines.